Hello and welcome back to Cigar Store Confessions. I'm your host, Colin, and tonight I'm joined by my good friend, Tyler Wible. Tyler, thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks for having me, Colin.
Of course. So, you and I go back a ways.
At least from this afternoon.
Yeah, at least from this afternoon.
No, since I started our friendship back in sixth grade, I would say that's been, and then till now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, you're like my longest friend.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, I freaking did that wrong.
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time, and there was a brief period of time where we weren't in regular communication, but cigars were kind of the thing that brought us back together, kind of rekindled our friendship.
Yeah, I would say a lot of young men, and especially out of high school, kind of choose their relationships over friendships and trying to get it all kind of figured out. So I was not any different. So I did the same thing, and then I saw you post on Snapchat actually going to Churchill's, and I had been going to Churchill's for only about like 6 months at that time. And you said, I was like, well, when did you start smoking cigars? He goes, oh, a couple months now. And he's like, but I only smoke it here. And I was like, oh, I've never actually smoked in the lounge. I usually just went and bought, and then I'd leave and go do my own thing. And so we started meeting once a week to smoke cigars, and it actually really kind of helped us. At the time, I was working quite a few jobs, and then at the time, I don't remember if you were at the coffee shop still.
Yeah, I was still managing Kara's Cup at that time.
So, just a couple of young bucks getting into good habits.
Yep. Trying to pretend to be sophisticated, smoking cigars.
That's the best part about it is when coming in was I never felt out of place.
Yeah.
Because the type of people that do come into Churchill's, it's not, we're dressed in these jackets and stuff for the podcast, but these people, there's vets and old cops and lawyers and stuff, but they don't come in here all dressed up all the time unless they're in the middle of the day, during a work day and they're in between cases or something. But, they come in and jeans, t-shirts, sweatpants, it doesn't matter. This is a pretty inclusive area. So coming in not feeling like you know everything and just kind of wanting to learn, nobody treats you because nobody treats you wrong. Everybody knows that you start somewhere, and then they just want to know who you are. It's not like, oh, who are you? Just like, no, it's because they want to talk to somebody.
Yeah, the same group of guys talking about the same stories over and over again gets old. So when a new face starts coming in regularly, they're like, oh boy.
Yeah. And you do kind of really build a family around it.
Oh yeah.
It's sadly we've had quite a few pass away,
unfortunately.
And we've had those. We've been to a few funerals, but it's kind of Grumpy. That was the first one. He's actually the one that we'll be smoking today. It's my favorite cigar. I will say it's my favorite cigar out of everything I smoked. It stays on top for me. But the first time I ever smoked it, I came in there and I grabbed it and I was getting into Maduros. It's a box press, and Grumpy he grabs it and he looks at it and he looks at me and he looks at it. He looks at me and he says, "Did you eat anything today?" I said, "Yeah, I had lunch." And he said, "What'd you have for lunch?"
He wanted details.
I said, "A couple pieces of pizza." He said, "A couple pieces of pizza." He said, "This is a full body cigar. You might feel sick." That was his whole thing. And he sold it to me. And, but he would just chain smoke his pipe down all day long.
And, based on that story, that's how we know that Grumpy actually liked you. Because if he didn't like you, and you walk in and you're a new face or you've just pissed him off for some reason, you ask for a recommendation, something mild, something easy on the palate, he'd find a dark, mean cigar and go, "This is a great cigar. It's really mild. You'll enjoy it."
And my voice, and I don't do the Grumpy voice nearly as well as you do on these impersonations, but if in that story, it makes it a lot better. It's just because Grumpy was
today.
Yeah, because Grumpy's like, Oh, like I think he was 5'1", 5 foot 5'1", and so he's a real tiny guy, but he had the raspiest voice,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just from years of chain smoking pipes, and
Mm-hmm.
not little pipes either, not like little, afternoon tokers. Like he loaded that thing up in the morning, and it was just like a three
Mm-hmm.
inch deep bowl. It was crazy.
Yep.
Same jacket, same vest every day.
Same gloves too that
Yeah,
always caught on fire once in a
yeah,
while.
when he was holding it. I think he only did it because he'd let his pipe get too hot, and he's like, "Oh, if I wear gloves, I won't have to worry about it as much if he
Yeah,
didn't feel it." But he was a great guy.
absolutely.
So,
Take a shot. Every time we say absolutely, someone has to take a shot. We're trying to break that habit.
oh, break the. Well, wouldn't that be that you? How are you going to break the habit for yourself when somebody else has the punishment?
I don't know. That's quite the ethical dilemma you've presented me with.
Paradoxes happen every day.
This is true. So let's light these up before we start talking forever and ever and we never get these going, which apparently happened on an episode we filmed recently.
You just never had it going.
Well, a previous episode, uh, I wasn't a part of that one, but oh yeah, here's the cutter. It was an interview with a rep. Tyler, the other Tyler, Tyler Musa, was interviewing him. And they just kept talking and talking and talking and holding their cigars.
They never let
They
them.
never lit them up.
Yeah. Sounds like something we would do.
Yeah, it does.
So this is the only box press that I actually smoke. I
Mm-hmm.
really don't smoke any of them other than this. And it's kind of you got to pay attention on how you light them. A lot more toasting, get it kind of evenly lit. And then it's just about being smart about how you keep it lit.
Mm-hmm. This is a cigar you actually introduced me to, also.
Yeah, this is the only, no, not the only, the first full box of cigars that I bought were these. Still have some. They're still in my humidor, keeping them aged.
You've still got that
I've
box?
still, not the whole box, but I've still got like 6 of them from that box.
So that box is like
That would have been,
7 years old now?
let's see. hmm It's going on 10 or 9, about 9 years old.
Wow.
And so I just keep my little humidor. It's just a little tabletop humidor, and I keep it well. And then every cigar I actually care about, I keep in there, and then the rest of them I keep in bags. And I do with the Bodivas.
Mm.
So, which I was talking with Chuck actually earlier today about the Bodivas. I love the technology. It's such a simple thing, but it's the only one I know that breathes.
Mm-hmm.
If you got too much humidity, it brings it down. If you have too little, it puts it out.
Yep.
And so they last a long time.
Yeah.
Keeping them in the right temperature environments, and as long as you aren't living in a desert, you can
Right.
usually. So in like Kansas here, they work really well.
Mm-hmm. And even if they, crap out on you and get really hard and crunchy, you can actually soak them in distilled water overnight and they come right back.
Yeah, and I would only recommend doing that a few times because of the wrapping on the
Yeah,
outside.
it'll wear out the
Yeah,
wrapping.
but
Another method is you can put a wet sponge in the corner of the Tupperware with the dry pack and it reabsorbs it through the air.
usually that'll help me do a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit better.
But on the other hand, they're so affordable. It's like,
Yeah. Coming to Churchill's, you get them, get you a pack, get you a few of them. They got those real big ones too that are great. When you got now, there's a big thing too, is just because you don't have a lot of airspace doesn't mean you don't have a lot of humidity opportunities.
Yes.
So sometimes if you got a lot of cigars, even in a little thing like mine, you want to do those bigger packs, and it kind of helps with because you've got a lot going on there, a lot to control. So I've done because what I was doing when I'd have mine full, I'd use the little ones, and they dry out so fast on like the winter months and everything. And I've seen and like that's another thing too is take some time every now and again to re-soak down your humidor, get that Spanish cedar soaked in. But in the winter, it's real hard. The winter really dries things out. I've moved projects to projects. I do a lot of that through my different investment properties and stuff that I've done over time.
Mm-hmm.
as I've moved, they've moved with me. And so those drier environments, dirtier environments, those type of things, it kind of makes it a little tougher, but those big packs really do help out.
Hmm.
I mean, I say big, they're like, they're
Yeah,
the size of a,
medium size.
yeah.
Yeah, 60 gram. So tell the people a little bit about what you do. Because you were working, 8 jobs right out of high school. How many jobs have you narrowed it down to?
No, so now I just work for myself full time,
Hmm.
and that's a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways. We, out of high school, I kept 3 jobs pretty regularly out of high school up until I was 21. I went to go work for myself full time. It was my first like big contract. I felt real proud doing historic renovations, and I was like, oh, I'm so cool. But I was still working like a dog every day, and then I was doing my all the side work on the side. I'd say side work outside of the contract. I was doing work as well, and so I've done quite a few different jobs in my life. But right now I'm a commercial and residential property developer, and I'm a Class A GC. So really kind of it allows me to flex around and be a part of it. With my GC license, I learned everything from the plans, getting the plans approved, all the way to giving the person the keys.
GC meaning general contractor.
General contract,
Okay.
yeah. Um, to giving them the keys, but as the developer side, I learned everything before that. So basically, I became a one-stop shop of knowledge of going from meeting the person and them having a dream and idea to them having the keys in their hand of the overall project, whether it be a commercial project and like they want to open a store, or their dream home, or investment properties of any sorts.
Mm. And in the beginning stages of this thing that you've built up for yourself, you were still doing a lot of that yourself. Like every part of it
Yeah. So
was your responsibility.
when I started out, I actually started out in high school doing these. I became a handyman, and I taught a lot of myself. Worked for some guys that had some rental properties in Central Topeka, and I just worked on cheap rentals, and that's how I gained everything. They're like, "Oh, we have this problem with the sink, or we want to put a washer and dryer here, or we want to do sheetrock." And I remember I did a trim job, and you know how to do sheetrock, and I said no, and well, give me a price for you to learn. And that was probably the best opportunity that I had. And yeah, I made like $3 an hour at the end of the day when it was all said and done. And I sanded more on that one sheetrock job than I have any other time I've done sheetrock, because I was just putting it on too thick and stuff. But it gave me an opportunity to learn. So I started that when I was, while working at the Target store when I was in high school. I did
Hmm.
both. Going to Topeka High and then Washburn Tech for schooling, and I'd go and I'd work my job as the Target store, and then I would do those little side jobs on the end. Uh,
And
just
when did you sleep?
Oh yeah, well, as long as you get 4 hours a night, you're pretty solid, and that's the main ticket. 4 hours, not 8, not 7, 4. You get everything you need in 4.
You heard it here
Yeah.
first.
Oh, so and then after high school, I just started work, and then like I was like 17 and I started to do that. And then I quit the Target store and
Hmm.
I went to build custom cabinets and countertops for Fisher's Fixtures, or the countertop shop. Those are, it's the same company, just one's an incorporate of the other. But and then, oh man, what happened? So from there, I went to Target Distribution and I did my side job. And then I went and drove a school bus. I was like 18 at the time. They just changed it. You can get a CDL and drive kids around in a school bus at 18 years old. I hid my age because I was very new, not like hid my age from the government, but hid my age from the students because I don't want them to think they can bully me around because they're just like a year younger than me. Um, so we did, I don't know, kind of bounced around a lot. And then I left the distribution center to go be the carpenter op in Washburn. This whole time I was building my skill set, and I was doing a lot, working on average between 80 to 96 hours a week throughout that whole time. And then when I was 21, I got my first big contract, left all those, had no more W-2 jobs after that. I just went to go fully work for myself. So I had that contract and I worked in people's houses. I left there to go. I just finished out all my jobs that I had, everything that was backlogged, and went and just started flipping some houses, and then went to the commercial spaces downtown. And so I have my building, and I've tried to make that a centerpiece of all my capabilities as a
The shouse.
yeah, the shop. So
Hmm.
it started off as a dream of just wanting to be able to put everything for my business and live there in one place, comfortably. And I got this massive building downtown for a great price, and met some great people along the way by doing it, and learned a lot. Made a lot of mistakes. Turns out you buy a 15,000 square foot building and you make a lot of mistakes. So,
We got enough space to spread all those mistakes out, though.
yeah, but yeah, one person, a lot of space, a lot of mistakes. There's some sort of calculation there. All the
Mathematician.
mathematicians. I was going to say mathematicians because that's what I always say is to the mathematicians.
Mathematicians.
Yeah, I'm no mathematician, but
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I do know that you don't count the eggs before they hatch. I think that's rule number one of being a mathematician.
yeah. I actually learned all that. The mathematician started off of a meme when I was in high school. That was like, it's like past your test, and it's like, it's just so hard to read. It's like all this chicken scratch, and then it was like hiding the mathematician. And yeah, it's something so dumb. And so I always said, well, I'm no mathematician. So I tried to actually just switch it over to say mathematician, but I should have just went with my mathematician joke and stuck with my true character.
You should just subtly slip it in, any opportunity you have, see if people catch it. I'm no mathematician, but blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I feel like that's just my normal day to day life.
What,
I
slipping
just don't
things
want
in and seeing if anybody
well,
notices?
just the mathematician part.
Oh,
The rest of the I'm not at liberty to say,
ah,
but the for the mathematician part,
there you go.
I can say that's what goes on.
Yeah.
So, um, it's my favorite. It's easy to smoke and talk the whole time because it's a familiar one for me. As a Maduro, it's a bold flavor, but it's not overpowering. The problem is with a lot of Maduros that I find is that you get in there, it's just super peppery.
Hmm.
And if it's super peppery on the last bit, it's because the oil's built up. That makes sense. Super peppery right on the front, it's hard to finish that last third. This is the first cigar I've ever was able to smoke all the way down to the last third. And that was a Maduro at least. Connecticut's and stuff are pretty simple, but this has always been one I enjoy. It's one that I feel like I don't have to choke down. I enjoy it all the way through. You have a conversation, you don't have to focus on it. And it draws well.
Super well.
Yeah, and like I've never had a problem with it. No matter, I can pick this up any time of year, any space, you know, and,
Hmm.
and I've never had a problem. I've
Yeah.
never had a problem.
Yeah, this cigar, for me, the very first time I smoked it was a very interesting experience because by that point, I'd been smoking regularly enough to where I kind of knew what I liked, and my palate was starting to develop, you know. But this cigar was a big step towards the development of my palate because I distinctly remember when we were sitting on the back porch of the house that I used to rent, and we were sipping Maker's Mark, I think.
Oh man, on the front porch, yeah,
Yeah, it was probably Maker's
yeah.
Mark
I
or
think it's
Captain
Maker's
Morgan.
Mark. No, oh, is it what I used to drink all the
Yeah, it
time?
was
So
it was
that's
real.
Captain and Coke.
All right,
Yeah,
Captain and Cokes. So we had
that's
Captain and Cokes. We had these, and I was puffing it, and Tyler had been hyping it up, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's try it. He brought them, so I wasn't gonna be like, I'm not smoking that. But it's weird to say, but Teddy Grahams, chocolate Teddy Grahams, that was like the first thing I tasted
yeah,
when I lit the thing up. I was like, it's so cocoa-y. It's like I had this flashback moment to, being in kindergarten,
yeah,
eating chocolate Teddy Grahams, but
well, yeah.
in a grown-up way. So it was a very interesting experience.
This is not for
This is
kids.
not for
Uh,
kids.
we have to
You
say
know,
that. I feel like
you can't eat this.
you can.
I mean, you
It's
could.
actually there's nothing in here that's going to kill you by eating it.
Well, it probably wouldn't be pleasant.
No.
probably wouldn't taste that good
Oh,
either.
there's people that gnaw on the end of these things all the time.
Oh, I
Cigar, you
know.
see
I
people
worked for one.
that, yeah. Oh man. No, these yeah, no, I actually until you said that today I completely forgot, but that was the first thing. It's like chocolate Teddy Grahams.
Hmm.
And I want to say you only took
A
three
few
or four
sips.
drags.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's not called drags on cigars.
Hmm. Still taste it too.
Yeah. It's not overpowering. It doesn't have it's it is a well flavored. It is
Hmm.
a bolder flavor than a Connecticut, but it's not punchy in the mouth bold.
Oh no, no.
It's just well. It's like when you season your steak, you know.
Hmm.
You season it well and you
Yeah,
don't need sauce.
yeah. Christian puts a lot of care and detail into this cigar in particular. I mean, I don't know how well it shows up, but the angles of the box press are like sharp. He has a very specific method of box pressing these cigars so that they're like crisp,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know.
a lot of box presses I there was one that I smoked and you said, "What is a box press?" And I remember looking at it and it just looked like they rolled a circle wrong. But it wasn't by a row. I can't remember who it was, but it was that same I remember having that thought, but because this was the box press I'm used to. Box press fits in your finger. If you got fat fingers like me, it fits in the best because it just sits right in there. And I know that probably doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but if you have arthritis, this is your cigar.
There you go.
Keep your fingers straight. You can do whatever with it.
Does it remind you of like a carpenter's pencil too?
Honestly, I don't use a lot of carpentry. A lot of the carpentry that I did was fine carpentry, and I didn't use carpentry pencils. I use regular pencils. You get a better finish on it, sharp. You gotta think when I'm doing cabinets and stuff, I can't be off. Like when we were building, we weren't allowed to be off more than the 16th of an inch. So
Whoa,
when you're building the whole cabinet set and stuff, carpenter's pencil mark can be off a 16th of an
right.
inch because of how they get carved. Um, and I've never was on a real like framing crew. So what was more versatile for me was the regular number two pencil. So I kept those. And plus, you can get them a lot cheaper. You can get number two pencil a lot cheaper than you can get carpenter's pencil. Carpenter's pencils just hold up better if you keep them in your back pocket and sit in your truck.
And even though they're bigger, sometimes somehow they always disappear.
Yeah, and they're bright neon colors. That's
Hmm.
because everybody takes them. But when you go in there with your number two pencil and you're the only one that uses number two pencils, you know where yours is. So, yeah, I guess you can say it's like a carpenter's pencil. I just never use them.
Well, I was trying to make a connection there, but I
Yeah, to
guess,
the construction part of
yeah.
things. Yeah.
This episode will be
Don't
called,
try.
yeah,
Don't try.
this episode will be called Building Bridges.
Oh, building bridges and burning cigars.
There you go.
There you go. Put that on there.
Yep.
So,
Sounds like a mixtape.
we got, what's interesting about that, with the building bridges part, like on a lot of what I do on the, has a lot of connections with the political side of things. Not in the sense of like policy,
Hmm.
right? Like we're not out here writing policy, but some policy really does control what I do, and you got to work with people on it. But the planning departments and stuff in cities is very diplomatic because everybody has a vision for what they want their city to be like, what they want someplace, how they want their neighborhoods to be. There's a lot of people that actually do care about a lot of these things that you don't really think about. You see things in shambles and you're like, oh, nobody really cares. And then you go to try to put something and everybody seems to care. But it finds out that people care and they have passion and they have their meetings and they do all this stuff. They just don't have the money to make a difference. So when you can bring that money in to make a difference, and when you're going to spend the money in the area anyways, it's really good to consult a lot of these people. So a lot of my approach on the development side is very diplomatic, and that's something that I didn't expect. And I'm a fairly diplomatic person. I've been that way a lot in my life. It just ended up working out really well on the development side in a way that I didn't expect it to. Um, but with when you have an invested interest in what you're doing and where things are going, not only in your life, but in your city and everything, it's important to be a part of that. I've dealt with a lot more NIAs, which I didn't even know what they were until I built a church. So there was a
What is an NIA?
NIA is a neighborhood improvement association, and a lot of these neighborhoods have them. Like there's historic Old Town in Central Park neighborhood, and North Topeka East, East Topeka North, East Topeka South. There's downtown, High Crest. There's Johnson Square. Uh, Oakland, like Oakland, we always say that one. That's a well-known one,
Mhm.
and that's a big neighborhood. And all these have NIAs, and what they are is people that are invested in that community because they've lived there for so long, or they're stakeholders in it, and they have a lot of thoughts and things to go into. So when I get somebody that says, "Oh, I want to open up a mechanic shop," and then they're like, "This is my budget," and I'm like, "Well, over here would be a great area." Those NIAs are very important to talk to, and the planning departments, and going to them and like saying, the planning department in Topeka is actually fairly great in the way that you could say, "Hey, I've got a client, they want to do this. Where would you put it? Where would you like to see it?" Because they have a 2040 plan, which was done back in like 2010, so it was a lot more monumentous then to say
Mhm.
2040. But now we're getting closer and they're kind of revising a lot of those things, some things that, as we've seen some of these neighborhood shifts and we've seen some of these spaces change face on how we're going to do our infrastructure and everything. But we have a big need and a big want for a lot of new in Topeka, right? So, we might not seem like it because everybody talks about how they try to hold back progress. Everybody wants it to be their idea. Well, I think it's just about everybody wants to be in the same spot. You drive through, you wanna open up a barber shop, and then you look at all the places where barber shops are, and you're like, oh, that would be a great location. Of course, they're doing great. Well, a barber shop is usually made a name off of advertising and who they are. So, like, and who they've done and the clients that they've brought in as an individual and who, with their skills and talents. And it just becomes a great area over time. Like
Mhm.
some of these are tucked away. There's people that are tucked away in spaces that you don't even know about, but the people that do know about it are regulars. So,
Like Churchill's.
yeah,
We've
Churchill
hopped around numerous different
and
locations all over town throughout the 50 plus years that this shop has been around. So far, where we're at now is probably our best location, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that we've been around as long as we have. We've made the connections that we have, and we've done our part to invest in Topeka as a whole, in the Topeka cigar community, let's say. If it wasn't for that, it wouldn't matter where we were.
the it's very important to be involved in your community, no matter what kind of business you run.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that more and more important as I've done my development side. But as a contractor, I learned all the streets of Topeka. I learned where people were when I was doing home remodeling, all sorts of stuff. I'd be all over. I was like, oh, I didn't even know there were houses back here. Well, businesses are no different. If Especially with the day and age of like computers and technology and everything, people find everything off of Google now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it used to matter that you drove down a strip and it's what you saw. Now, if you're looking for something, hey, I need to find this person. I need to find something
Right.
that does that. Or, you come across Facebook ads, you come across things on YouTube, all sorts of different advertisements, and it's a fast paced world.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Churchill's is kind of tucked away. I mean, 17th is fairly busy, and Fairlawn's fairly busy. You're kind of tucked back away from Fairlawn. And people on 17th, I mean, a cigar shop's one of those ones that really doesn't need a lot of road traffic. It's more because it's a business people search for.
Mm-hmm.
Most businesses are businesses people search for. Unless you're a restaurant, you know.
Some days it
Yeah.
feels like we are.
Yeah. Um, Unless you're a restaurant that food that people driving by, you're trying to get people's cravings at that point. Oh, but here, It's not like that. I think
Hmm.
people search for it. People know that, and this is a lot more of a visible location than what where we were before,
Hmm.
which was over there in that Gage Center.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I found it just by Google. I didn't even know where it was. I'd never been by it, and then well, looked
Yeah.
it up on Google because I had gotten into it, and I was actually watching some podcasts that were into cigars, and I wanted to learn more about it. First cigar I ever had was one of those acid cigars. Actually,
Oh,
it was a vanilla acid cigar, and it was at the Renaissance Festival.
I bet you paid about triple the value for it over there
Oh yeah, I
too.
think it was like I paid like $11 for an acid cigar at the time. Now that seems not so astronomical in today's time. And this was like 2016, so like
That's
that was
yeah.
a lot for an acid cigar then.
Yeah, back then they were probably only about $5. So they're almost $8 a piece now. So
Yeah, so they've doubled in price
yeah,
almost. And so like now you're like, oh, $8 a cigar shop, $11 there, but it's probably 16, $17 to get it from a Renaissance
easily.
festival.
Yep,
And
easily.
so
That's where we ought to be setting up shop.
yeah, get out there, get Colin dressed in I don't know, it depends on the theme, doesn't it? You'd probably do fine on the pirate weekend.
I could do the pirate thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I'd
got
cut my leg off,
yeah, I don't,
poke my eye out. I got to commit to the role. You know,
yeah,
got to be taken seriously.
yeah, they would appreciate that out
I'm sure they would.
there. The dedication of this man.
Wow, this guy's an idiot,
It's
man.
like some
Wow.
people have something happen to them and they change their career field based off of what their disabilities have become. And Colin will create disabilities to create a job.
Imagine that on a business card.
Put that on a resume, stamped and approved. Put me as a reference. I'll write you down.
Oh man, I would, but I cut off my right hand for a hook.
Yeah. Well, you won't pick your nose anymore.
No, no. Sorry, I totally derailed where you were going with that.
Uh, no, I think it's just so on the development standpoint, there's a lot of these commercial spaces that get overlooked on some of the spaces that we have the best infrastructure. Like how many businesses there could be on 6th Street versus how many are.
Hmm.
And it's because people overlook it. Oh, the crime, the neighborhood, all that stuff. Well, it gets better based off how you want things to go. Like, by putting businesses in there and increasing traffic and doing that, they have all this parking on off of 6th Street, easy to access, well, pretty well lit road at night. The road's always taken care of, it's just redone. Lots of traffic. It's a good spot. And the businesses that are there have been there a long time. The most expensive part of putting in a new building is the infrastructure leading to the building. Sewer lines, water lines, bringing in electric, all that stuff costs quite a bit of money. You could do a pre-existing building and do a renovations. Those costs aren't there. If you don't have to redo the outside shell, you got good bones, and a lot of our structures in Topeka do. You don't have to be on Wanamaker building a new building, cramming it up. You can be downtown. You can be off of 6th Street, off of 17th. There's lots of openings off of 10th, wherever the hospital hasn't bought all of them from. California Street. Look at all the vacancies out there. And, that there's a whole area that wouldn't even want to go to Wanamaker. That's a long time. Who wants to hop in the car and go 20 minutes on the highway just to get to an even more crowded part of town? Sometimes you just want to go down there and you want to get what you need.
Hmm.
So I think it's important to look at these type of things, and that's why it's important to be very invested in your community. If you want things to change in your community, you have to be involved in your community. You can't sit at a keyboard and complain about everything. You got to be out there and just figure out where are the roadblocks actually happening. The people in those meetings know where the roadblocks are. And if you go to those meetings, you learn where the roadblocks are, and then maybe you can help figure out a solution to get over those roadblocks. But sitting there and having 1,000 people saying, well, our roads are crap. Well, okay. Yeah, we all know that. Fix it. How do you get in and do it? Our taxes are too high. Well, look at why our taxes are too high. It's because we have way more infrastructure than we need for the amount of people we have here, and we keep dumping money into stuff that we shouldn't be. We give all of our where does our sales tax dollars go? Goes to all these NGOs. NGOs are worthless. If you want to start a business in Topeka, you just got to do it on your own. Don't join these NGOs. The chamber as a small business is not going to help you. Forge. I went to a Forge event thinking, oh, there's people like me. They're going to be entrepreneurs and young people trying to do business and all that stuff. It's a bunch of people in dead end jobs that want to feel better about being in dead end jobs. And so they made an NGO where they can get together and do these events with people that are in their mid 30s and they are just have to cope with the fact that they are not going to get a pay raise for another 10 years.
Hmm.
And it is what it is. You're stuck in a dead end job and you got to feel better about it. Let's make an NGO. Instead of teaching these kids how to get out there and do something for themselves, how do you get a better job? How do you land it? How do we bring better business? How do you build a business? They don't talk about any of these things.
So you and I are both Topeka natives, born and raised. We've been here all our lives. We've both had opportunities to potentially leave, but we've decided to stay.
Yeah,
Would you say that you love or believe in Topeka and its potential?
I wouldn't be here if I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at what I do. I can do it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have my contractor's license in a lot of different cities, and I do projects in different cities. Olathe, um, Lawrence, Manhattan. Uh, we've done, and I've even gone down to Stillwater, Oklahoma,
Hmm.
and done jobs. Here's the thing: I wouldn't stay in Topeka if I didn't think that there was opportunity. I like Topeka. There's a lot of good people in Topeka,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a lot of opportunity in Topeka. But we've got to stand up for what we truly need to happen. I've been kind of made fun of a lot in the past by people from high school. When you start talking about what you do and everything, you start doing these things, and these people, yeah, they got higher paying jobs in another town. They feel better about themselves. Nothing is more laughable than saying, I need to get out of Kansas and going to Kansas City, Missouri. That's not getting out of Kansas. I'm sorry. You just traded for worse politics. You just have a terrible time. You have just as bad of infrastructure. You're not in any better place. You say, and
Terrible traffic too.
yeah, and you're just saying, oh, yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad.
Shout out to Chuck, our Kansas City native.
um, it's just you can't say. And some people move there for jobs, and I understand people move out to follow their career and things they're passionate about. If you're stuck here and they're like, oh well, everybody's favorite thing to say is if you don't like it, then leave. Well, it's hard to do. I've had the opportunity to leave, and I choose not to.
Well,
And
that feels kind of cowardly.
to
You know,
leave,
I don't like this, I'm leaving. Like, maybe it should be reframed as if you don't like it, see what you can do about it. If you can't do anything about it, then leave.
yeah.
But
Well,
like you said, there's a lot of opportunity here.
and I think a lot of people miss the very crucial step you're talking about, which is, um, what can I do to fix it?
Mhm.
And if you don't take the opportunity to try to fix it, then you're not doing any favors for yourself or anybody.
Mhm.
And I understand there's a lot going on. You need to, if we all just focus on ourselves and our own problems, then the system wins, man. That's what they
That's
want.
right, man.
That's what they want.
That's what they
Well,
want.
they just want. Oh,
Well, it's not a phenomenon that's unique to Topeka. Like again, growing up here, being born and raised here, the roads. Everyone always complains about the roads. And when the roads get worked on, they complain about, oh, they'll be doing this until next winter.
yeah.
And sometimes it's true, but
21st and Topeka's open.
yeah, it's finally open.
It's open.
They took out the median and put back a smaller one. But this idea of, you're born in a town that doesn't give you every opportunity, that doesn't mean the opportunity isn't there to be made. maybe you have to carve it out for yourself. And I don't think that's a unique phenomenon
It's
to
not.
where we're living. I think somebody in Stillwater might feel the same way, or somebody in Dearborn, Missouri might feel the same way.
There's everywhere you go, your opportunity is purely carved by yourself. It's the biggest thing we got to focus on as a community. If you don't feel like there's enough opportunity, we need to build an infrastructure of opportunity. You build an infrastructure of opportunity, and infrastructure is always a target word, right? Like this is where everybody's, oh, it says
Right.
infrastructure. What's he going to talk about?
Right.
Infrastructure, when I think about that, is what is your building blocks? What is your main drive, right? If you lead a pathway, infrastructure, streets, sewer lines, gas lines, electrical, the infrastructure, what's going on, sidewalks. Well, same thing as in when you're looking at opportunity. If we set up everything to where people can access the opportunity around them, if we make it more prevalent, and what's not doing infrastructure for opportunity is trying to get somebody to open a business on Wanamaker instead of 6th Street or 10th Street or 17th or California.
Because Wanamaker doesn't need it.
It doesn't need it. It doesn't need extra selling points,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the biggest thing. Nobody, you can get a great opportunity on land somewhere else, and people will be like, "Oh, I wish I would have done that 8 years ago." Like I wish I would have been doing that, but they had the opportunity. It's just you got to think outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
If you just follow where everybody wants you to go, you're not gonna snag what you need.
Right.
It's like fishing in an overfished pond. Oh, well, everybody else is catching fish here. Well, yeah, you're not going to because they're all gone.
So, in the spirit of that, what are you what are you working on? What are you investing in right now? What are some projects you have going on that you can disclose?
Yeah. Um, 37th and Gage. There's that big plot of land, 26 acres. That's a big one we're focusing on. I'm focusing personally, a lot of my passion goes towards affordable housing, actual affordable housing. I saw these guys that did some affordable housing recently. That was a 540 square foot home that they're trying to sell for 150,000.
Oh,
Tell me how that's affordable.
well,
Yeah,
it's not.
there you go. It's not affordable. 150,000 is like the average home loan, except like what people are approved for. Doesn't mean it's what they can afford.
Yeah.
You can get approved for whatever, and it straps you thin. But so when you're building it, and so on that type of math, you're selling a home for like $277 a square foot. And this type of home that they built it affordably. Spending if they overpaid for labor and everything, they spend $125 a square foot to build that home, and they're trying to sell it for $277 a square foot. That's an over profited margin. So when I look at it, if you can make a good 25% return, that's a good day. On real estate that you're building on the new construction because you want to go off volume. You can't hit a home run on every single play.
Hmm.
So what I'm looking at it is we got to look at things that doesn't take up as much land. Like when you look at the building in Topeka, you have to have 7 feet from your property line on each side, 30 feet from the roads. Boom. So on a lot of these lots, that becomes impossible on some of these narrow lots in older parts of town, so nobody wants to deal with them. But or they'll get these lots together and consolidate to put one house. And then they complain about population density. But if we looked at stuff like these other townhomes are great. Imagine if you didn't have to maintain two parts of your house.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. You have a nice firewall, some soundproofing between it. Like, um, you can have a really nice, sturdy, well maintained townhome. The sun's beating down on the south side. Well, maybe your south side's covered by the other guy, by your neighbor, and those type of things add up. Gives you more surface area. It makes a real simple roof line. You maintain your part of your roof. Everything works together. It works in other cities. We can't look at Topeka as the and as a phenomenon. It is not different than any other place you can go. You can set up any type of infrastructure here, and if it doesn't fit what you need, work out a deal. We are not a town that should be past making a deal. We have a base code, we have a base, city ordinance. But if somebody came in here and they wanted to build 45 homes today, I'm going to work a deal with them. If I was in the chambers in the planning department or whatnot, I would be working a deal with them. We need housing. We need affordable housing. So affordable housing is a big thing for me. I'm working some deals. I'd like to be able to buy some more commercial properties. I want to increase my property portfolio. Renting houses, renting single family homes is not profitable. I do not care who you are. The numbers never add up. Stop pricing these people out of their homes. It's not profitable just because, and don't become slumlords because single family homes are not profitable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, home owner occupied is always best for the economy. Flip out of your homes. Do rent to owns for people that can't get loans. You will always come out ahead on a rent to own situation, and you will never come out ahead as a single family rental. Remember that. So for all you kids watching this in 10 years, when this becomes a very popular podcast, you just remember Tyler Wible said it here first. This is not profitable. Don't do it. But we need to look at more multifamily options, non-conventional to Topeka. Things that we were looking at. When this town was being built, we were looking at stuff like that. You have your store below, you live above, or or multi-generational housing. Let's not get away from that concept. Age in place. We don't need basements. We have ways to build fully monolithic homes that can withstand tornadoes, and we just need to start making shutters usable again and not plastic things you buy off the shelf at Home Depot, Menards, and Lowe's. Make them actually where they close and protect your windows during storms and stuff. Hey, maybe you got to get off the couch when they say the tornadoes are coming and maybe, close the shutters. We got to do a little bit more on our part. Basements weren't always around, and our temperature's too hot in Topeka on the ground level for it to actually wipe out Topeka ever again anyways. But
What's that called again? It's the blacktop phenomenon or something like that.
it's when the ground temperature is too hot, the tornado can't form in Topeka. It can come from the out of Topeka and work its way in, but after a certain while, the ground's just too hot.
Hmm.
Blacktop, we have blacktop, concrete buildings, concrete sidewalks, concrete roads, parking lots, all that stuff, driveways, it adds up. It's a lot of heat. We see those on thermal temperatures. The hottest parts that we see on thermal imaging on our planet are highly populated areas. And it's not because of the gases produced there, it's because of the roads and infrastructure that holds a lot of heat. I mean, if you can cook an egg on blacktop, what do you think that's doing for, your ground temperatures are real hot. So you're not worried about as much for tornadoes. I think you can get away from it without doing basements and make shutters usable, fully monolithic, attach to where the base of your footer to the tip top of your roof's fully connected. You can do these things and tie it in and withstand 200, almost 300-mile-per-hour winds.
Wow.
So
I've never thought of that before. Again, growing up in Kansas, it was always go to the basement, or go to the storm shelter or whatever.
Go outside, pull up a chair.
Well, that's the typical thing to do. Yeah, it's coming.
It's not here yet. If I get lucky, I'm in the middle of it.
Right, yeah.
Eye of the storm. But yeah, that's where we got to look at things. See, everybody, and the other part about affordable housing for me, and what's the most interesting, is not about the price point as much. The price point is important, and you got to find ways to bring that down. New construction, it does get difficult. But if we think outside the box and we do it properly, I'm looking at low maintenance housing, because the most unaffordable part of a home is all the maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can put a roll-on roof on there and it's a completely concrete building, and you have nothing that can rot, and you've got 30-year warranty on your sealers, You got a 30 mil roll on roof. Then a Saturday, you could get out there and put another coat on and get you another 10 years out of. No problem. There's certain things that the maintenance becomes fairly easy. You don't have holes in walls. You don't have regular sheetrock. R40 valued housing. R40 value keeps your utilities really low. No mow yards. That's another thing. Get away from the grass. Look, do
Moss.
some. Well, I mean, creeping thyme. You got all sorts of different like wildflowers and stuff that only get so tall that do meet city ordinances because they don't get over a foot. And you just plant it outright. Do more gardens. Do self-sufficient gardening. Use your rainwater, set it out, let it leach out into your ground, give it some water. There's ways to do this. Green driveways. There's all sorts of ways to do things. Ranch style homes are ADA compliant. Build everything ADA compliant. You never know when somebody's gonna. It's not always you that's gonna make a mistake. You don't know when somebody else is gonna make a mistake that messes up your life. What if you get put in a wheelchair? Nobody wants to move out of their home because they're put in a wheelchair.
Mhm.
So, or you have to use a walker for a year while you're learning how to walk again. You realize how tight things get when you've got something that inhibits you from moving around. So ADA compliant. When we look at these, AARP has marked Topeka as an age-in-place city, and that's important to remember because it's because of our type of infrastructure, this type of sidewalks we have, how we run everything, the ways our rules are set up, the style of homes, all those things matter. They have grants, they have opportunities, and I think if the more you make it based off of what kind of when you look at your home, when you're going to buy a home, and when you look at it and you say, can I do maintenance on that at 70 years old? I want to get it to the point where you can say yes. Why not?
Hmm.
Because it's low slope roofs. In a single story. If you do 2 stories, like how it's planted out smart. Ranch style, take up a little bit more land space, make it long, play with the shapes a little bit. It doesn't have to be the same rectangular box stamped 30,000 times.
Hmm.
You know,
Not suburbia.
yeah. Well, even if it was, let's change how we think about how suburbia should be laid out.
It's quite the vision.
Yeah, it takes time, takes money, takes energy and effort, takes people to be involved.
Hmm. And lots of time sitting down and discussing, evaluating.
Yeah, if you talk too long, it will go out on its own with dignity.
Yes, with dignity. I like that.
Yeah.
This cigar went out with dignity.
But we have, that's one of the things I really do enjoy about saying, and I really should make it more of a habit to smoke a cigar once a week. And the reason is I feel like that's when you're fast paced and you're always moving and you're always doing something, you're always thinking something up, um, you don't take the time to sit down and like plan it out. What am I doing? What's going on? Um, Coming here, talking with you, just like last week, I explaining to you how I do my job, what I do for a living. It's kind of complicated, but when you break it down to the building blocks, it makes me think, oh, why did I overlook that? And then I'm back to the drawing board again. There's a deal I'm going to work out with a building downtown purely off a conversation we had last week, and hopefully it works out.
Hmm.
But it's just another way to do business. We are not a town too big to do a deal. Nobody in this town is too big to do a deal. You just got to get out there and do it.
Because it's in everybody's best interest, big or small, to invest in Topeka, to invest in the town that they live in.
Yeah.
Because, just look under the rocks. There's opportunity somewhere. Most times it's not even that much work either.
There's no difference in investing in your community and investing in yourself.
Yeah. Or your future or your family's future.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
The I don't know how much do you share your family life, or
A little bit.
you know, as you've got generations coming on, like that's something to think about. You
Yeah.
want to think about, or how are my kids going to do?
Hmm.
Are they going to be able to thrive,
Hmm.
survive? Are we going to have to move just so that they have opportunity?
Yeah.
When you think about, and I don't have any kids, but when you think about the next year, when people that do have kids, when you think about the next generation, about how your kids are going to be raised, your whole life is setting up them to
Yeah.
succeed, to be better than how you had it.
Right.
That's like the number one thing. It's what every parent I've ever talked to, everybody that's ever said anything, they feel successful when they feel like they gave their kid opportunities that they didn't. Do it in the community.
Mhm.
Infrastructure for opportunity. That's what you set up for your kids. That's what we can set up for our communities. And
I
it,
heard this little piece of advice once, and I can't remember who it came from, but this guy said that whatever you do in life, career wise, there is an element of spirituality to it as well, an element of morality, the direction that you're pointing in, basically, in life. He said you have to picture it as these interconnecting circles. The first circle is you, it's good for you. The next circle is it's good for your family. Then the next circle outside of that is it's good for your community. Then it's good for your city, and so on and so on and so on. And if everybody had that kind of a focus, you know, the tide continues to rise and all the ships are brought up with it.
well, but you got to think by the time that you've taken the time to do something for yourself, the amount of effort you put in there would have been just as easy to build a path along the way for other people to do it easier.
Sure.
Because if you come back around and do the same thing, you want it to be easier. I don't want to start back at square one.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing is we got to stop harboring knowledge.
Being gatekeepers.
Yeah, gatekeeping doesn't help
Shout
anybody.
out Alec Bradley. Sorry, I had to.
Yeah, you can't um, you can't continue to be gatekeepers. You've got to look at it as how do we move forward as a whole. You know, we can't be the same people that say it takes a village and then not be a part of that village.
Yeah.
Everybody at least once in their life says it takes a village because they hear it, and when it pertains to them, they're like, oh, it takes a village.
At
Uh,
some point,
they've
to
got
be
it.
a part of a community, you have to be a part of a community.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. You can't just take and take. And Topeka is kind of a town of takers, and it's a town of people that they want everything for free, and they're mad that they're spending money on their taxes. You know what I'm saying? It's a catch-22. Well, okay, so let's broaden our tax base and make it easier on everybody. We've got the infrastructure. How do we use the infrastructure today? If we didn't branch out, if you forced everybody to be in a bubble today, and we couldn't move out, and all we kept doing was bringing stuff in, how do you bring it? How do you build it off of
Yeah.
there? If you keep having kids and stuff, where are they going to live? What's going to happen? How would you build your town if you couldn't expand out? You start filling it back in. You start back at ground zero, the center of town. Right now we're kind of a rust belt of a town. The outside has this great infrastructure and it's been done really well. And then in the center, it's dying. So, and then they try to bring it back by spending all this money downtown with no real plan. There's no like the stakeholders of downtown got all this money and they got all this stuff, but look how many empty buildings are downtown. You spend all this money and you keep up on the roads, you have all this infrastructure and all these things, and yeah, you're doing these events. These events cost money, but there's no money being made.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just add an extra tax on the people that want to be in business downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets pushed on to the renters. And it's like, oh, yeah, come be downtown. Oh, and here's your giant bill for being downtown. It doesn't make any sense. We have plenty of infrastructure out there in other places too. And we can grow downtown, but it's got to be organic. Every deal has to stand on its own. If it can't stand on its own, we have to keep filling it, then we're not doing anything right. It's like buying a pool that has a hole in the side of it, and you're like, instead of patching that hole,
Let's pour
Okay,
more
I'm
water
just
in.
gonna keep pouring more water, and then complain about how the water bill is so high. Come on now, it's just you can't. It's like filling if your cup's empty and you're trying to fill somebody else's, it doesn't work. It doesn't work in business. It doesn't work anywhere.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, but the pieces are here, you know, the the ideas are here, people like you who want to raise the tide and raise everybody up with it. It's just a matter of putting things together properly, not just a club of, like you were describing earlier, you know, people at burnt out dead end jobs who have a social club and they talk about their ideas to make themselves feel better about themselves. An actual collection of people who want to bring Topeka back.
It's the whole coming up with an idea and saying, okay, all we need now is the money. You have it. If you get to that point and if you get to the point of being able to sell it to somebody, you can sell it to a bank. If you can sell it to a bank and you need so much down, well, now you cut your amount of money you need down. Can you all pitch in? Can you save up to that? Can you make it happen? Dreams and ideas that's where a lot of people stop. Oh, yes, would be great. We just don't have the money. Okay, well, how much is it going to take? Well, I don't know. It's just too much money. Okay, well, then you don't know.
Right.
And you can't cut yourself short and expect everybody else to believe in you. So you got to be able to have that same mentality on your personal life, your business life, and how you handle your community. It's the same type of thing. You go forward and you say, I've got this vision. All right, is it going to stop there, or do you share your vision? And once you share your vision, right, and then you go, oh, that's actually a great idea. You get people behind you, they want to be a part of that vision. And then you come to the point like, oh, yeah, but it's going to take too much money. It's going to take too much time. It's like, okay, how much money? How much time? I don't know, too much. Well, you screwed up. Figure out how much. Never end until the very end. And yeah, it can get exhausting. That's literally my job. You keep trying every possibility until something sticks. But when something sticks and you go through all the due process, it's stands on its own and it's a successful endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about that fight because if you put that kind of energy and effort into that getting that far, you're not going to give up when the times get tough any other time. People keep slamming the doors in your faces, you're going to find a way to make it work if you're passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole, like, um, I have family that kind of thinks like I'm rich and all this stuff. I'm not rich, right? I'm not, and I work hard for what I have. And then they ask, well, how do you do that? How did you get these clients? And how did you do that? How did you get this investment property? And you break it down. And I go, oh, that's a lot of work. Well, yeah, it was, it was a lot of work. But if you want to do it, I can help walk you through it. If I did it for them and gave it to them, they'd be happy.
But then
But
they'd never appreciate it.
no, they would run it into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that no deal
Excuse
is
me.
good enough to work without work. You've got to be able to be willing to put the work in to make anything work.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have that mentality, you can go pretty far.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us again for Cigar Store Confessions. Tyler, thanks for coming out and sharing your expertise, your experience with investing in Topeka, with carpentry, and with how cigars are that little piece of the puzzle that helps you to bring it all down, take a step back, and relax.
Yeah, the beautiful part I find a lot about cigars, and I appreciate you having me here, is the ability to just do that step back and really talk about whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on your environment and whatnot, actually, it just forces you to stay in place long enough.
Yes,
And so, no, I greatly appreciate you having me on
of
here.
course.
It's been a great experience, and we'll see if I ever get back on here.
All right. Let the people know where they can find you, social media wise, and all that.
Yeah, I don't. It's Tyler Wible. You can go to Wible Property Development. Uh, my website is wiblepd.com, but it stands for Wible Property Development. or just a local company. Try to do everything from your ideas to giving you the keys. So anything in between there, we can make it happen.
Absolutely. Take a shot. And of course, we've got our big festival coming up May 17th from noon to 5. We're going to have 8 cigar vendors.
You can find me there too.
Yes, Tyler's one of our excellent sponsors. He provided the traffic cones.
2 years running.
2 years running,
2
baby.
terms, baby.
So get your tickets while you can. Tyler, thank you again. And thank you all for joining us for another episode of Cigar Store Confessions. And we'll see you next time.
And you're welcome.
You're welcome.